I didn't plan to lie. I swear I didn't sit down one day and decide to tell the biggest lie of my life. It just happened. I was scared, and I chose the easiest way out. That's the truth. It started a few weeks after I broke up with Brian. He was my boyfriend for 2 years, and for a while, I thought we'd end up together. But it was always complicated with him. He had this way of pulling back when things got too real. He hated talking about feelings. He hated planning the future. I wanted a home, a family, some peace. He wanted to keep things simple. So I ended it. Not with a big fight or anything. Just a quiet goodbye. We both knew it was coming. A month later, Jason and I started dating. Jason had been in my life for a while, one of those steady, kind friends who always showed up. We met in college and stayed close. He had feelings for me for a long time, I think, but he never pressured me. After Brian, Jason felt safe. He made me laugh, cooked me dinner, and listened. God, he actually listened. I slept with Brian about 2 weeks before we broke up. I remember that night so clearly. It was cold and quiet, and we barely spoke. But we still ended up in bed. I guess I was trying to hold on to something that was already gone. When I found out I was pregnant, I was sitting in my tiny bathroom, holding a cheap test in my shaking hands. 2 pink lines. I stared at them for so long my eyes went blurry. I knew right away the baby was Brian's. The dates lined up. My heart dropped into my stomach. I sat on the floor for an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just kept thinking, I can't go back to him. I can't do this with Brian. I'll lose myself. The thought of telling Jason scared me even more. What would he think? That I used him? That I was dragging him into someone else's mess?
So I didn't say anything.
Jason was with me every step of the way after that. I told him I was pregnant, and his face lit up like the 4th of July. He smiled so big, hugged me, cried a little. I hated myself in that moment, but I also felt safe. Like maybe this could still be okay. Are you sure it's mine? He asked me once, just to be sure, I guess. I looked him straight in the eye and said yes. That was the lie. After that, things moved fast. We started planning a wedding. Nothing big, just something simple at the courthouse. Jason said we didn't need to wait. We're already a family, he told me. His parents were thrilled. My mom said she always liked him better than Brian anyway. I told my friends the baby was Jason's. I told my sister. I told the nurse. I told everyone. I told it so many times it started to feel like the truth. But at night, when I was alone, the fear would come crawling in. What if the baby looked like Brian? What if Brian found out? What if Jason knew I lied? I deleted Brian's number. I blocked him on social media. He texted me a few times, just simple things. Hey, how are you? Or I was thinking about you. I didn't answer. Some nights, I dreamed I was back with Brian, holding a baby that wouldn't stop crying. In the dream, he would turn his back and walk away. I always woke up sweating. Jason painted the nursery yellow. He bought little socks and onesies and read baby books. He was excited. I wanted to match his joy, but I felt like I was watching everything from behind glass. Smiling, nodding, pretending. I told myself I was doing the right thing. Brian would have been a terrible dad. He never wanted kids. He barely held a steady job. Jason was kind and patient. He wanted this. He deserved this. That's how I justified it. That's how I slept at night. When we went for the first ultrasound, Jason held my hand. I watched the little flickering heartbeat on the screen and felt something crack open in me. This was real. This baby was real. A part of me. A part of Brian. I swallowed that part down. The doctor asked if we wanted to know the sex. I looked at Jason. He smiled. Yes, we said at the same time. It's a boy.
A boy.
Jason cried again. I didn't. I felt blank. Not because I didn't love the baby. I did. But I was scared of how much of Brian would show in him. Still, I kept going. Baby shower.
Wedding.
Ultrasounds. Diaper shopping. I went through it all like I was following a script. I didn't stop to breathe. And then, one quiet Tuesday morning, after 9 long months, I gave birth to our son, Lucas. Jason was there the whole time. He held my hand through the pain, wiped my forehead, told me I was strong. When Lucas finally arrived, red-faced and screaming, Jason whispered, "He's perfect." He looked so happy. I smiled, too, but my chest felt heavy. Lucas had dark eyes like Brian's. A little dimple on his left cheek. The nurse said, "Looks like he got your husband's nose." I laughed, but inside, I wanted to scream. I had just given birth to a beautiful baby boy. I should have felt pure joy. But instead, I felt a weight pressing down on me. A secret deep in my bones. I told myself again, it's better this way. It's better this way. But something in me already knew it wasn't. The first few weeks after Lucas was born were a blur. Between feeding, crying, sleeping, and diaper changes, I barely knew what day it was. Jason was amazing. He got up in the middle of the night to help. He rocked Lucas for hours when I couldn't, and he always looked at me like I was the strongest woman in the world. I wanted to be that woman for him. I really did. But every time I looked at Lucas, I saw Brian. It wasn't just the eyes or the way he wrinkled his forehead when he yawned. It was something deeper, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I'd catch myself staring at him, searching his little face for signs, wondering how long I could keep this up. Jason didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. He called Lucas his little man and took hundreds of pictures. He showed everyone, his coworkers, his barber, the grocery store cashier. He was proud. So proud. I pretended to be, too. At night, after Jason fell asleep, I would sit on the couch and hold Lucas close. He was warm and soft and smelled like milk and baby lotion. Sometimes he would stare up at me like he knew everything. I would whisper, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," over and over again, hoping he'd understand one day. Everyone around us was so happy. My mom visited every weekend and brought casseroles and knitted hats. Jason's parents sent baby toys and cards with sweet notes about how lucky Lucas was to have us. My friends came by and brought tiny clothes and asked if we were getting any sleep. They all believed the story. No one questioned a thing. Except for me. I was living under glass, smiling and nodding and pretending everything was perfect. But behind the glass, I was cracking. One day, my friend Rachel came over. She's known me since high school, and she doesn't miss much. She held Lucas and looked at him for a long time. "He's really cute," she said. "But he doesn't look like Jason, does he?" My heart stopped for a second. I laughed. Babies change so fast. Who knows what he'll end up looking like? She nodded slowly.
Yeah.
True. She didn't push it, but I could feel the shift. A tiny crack in the wall. A week later, I was at the mall with Lucas, just walking around to get some air. I hadn't slept much and looked like it. My hair was a mess, and I was wearing one of Jason's old sweatshirts. Lucas was in the stroller, kicking his feet and making little noises. And then I saw him. Brian. He was walking out of a coffee shop with a paper cup in his hand. He almost passed right by us.
But then he stopped.
"Emily," he said. My stomach dropped. I froze. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. He looked down at the stroller. "Is this your baby?" I nodded.
Yeah.
"This is Lucas." He leaned over, looked at him, and smiled a little. "He's cute. Looks a bit like you." I didn't say anything. Brian's eyes stayed on Lucas a second longer than they should have. Then he looked back at me. "You doing okay?" "Yeah," I said quickly.
Married.
"Jason and we're good." Brian raised his eyebrows, like something clicked. But he didn't say anything else. Just nodded. "Well, congrats," he said. "You look good. Take care." And then he walked away. I stood there for a long time, gripping the stroller handle, my heart racing. I felt sick. After that day, the guilt started eating me alive. I couldn't sleep. I snapped at Jason over small things, laundry, dishes, baby bottles. He didn't understand what was going on. I told him I was tired, which was true, but that wasn't the whole truth. One night, I sat down and opened my laptop. I started writing a letter to Brian. I didn't plan to send it, I just needed to get it out. I told him Lucas was his. I told him I had lied because I was scared. I wrote about Jason and how kind he was and how I didn't want to ruin the life we were building. I wrote about the fear that never left me, the lie that sat between me and everyone I loved. I cried as I typed it. It was the first time I had said it, even to myself. When I finished, I saved the letter in a hidden folder. I couldn't send it. Not yet. A few days later, I noticed Jason acting differently. Quiet. Careful. He watched me a little too long, like he was trying to figure something out. One night, after Lucas had gone to sleep, he sat next to me on the couch and said, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. He looked down at his hands. "Are you sure? I mean, really sure that Lucas is mine?" I felt all the air leave my lungs. My throat closed up. I couldn't lie again. So, I didn't say anything. And that silence said everything. Jason didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stood up and walked to the bedroom. The next morning, he packed a small bag and left. He kissed Lucas on the forehead and told me, "I need time." And then he was gone. After Jason left, the house felt different. Quieter, heavier. like something had been taken out of the air, and now everything echoed a little too much. Lucas was too young to understand what had changed. He still reached out for Jason sometimes, especially in the evenings. He'd say, "Dada," and look around like he expected him to come walking through the door. I'd smile and say, "He's coming soon, baby." But I didn't know if that was true. Jason didn't cut us off completely. He called every few days to check on Lucas, and sometimes he dropped by to bring diapers or food. But he never stayed long. He didn't ask me questions.
He didn't look me in the eye.
He was still kind, but something was gone. The trust, the warmth, the way he used to touch my back when I passed by. All of that had disappeared, and I hated myself for it. The letter I wrote to Brian stayed on my laptop. I opened it sometimes, reread it, stared at it like it might help me figure out what to do. I still hadn't told him the truth. I didn't know if I ever would. One evening, I was watching Lucas play on the floor. He had this stuffed bear Jason gave him, and he was talking to it like it was alive. He made the same little expression Brian used to make when he was annoyed, a wrinkled nose, a little pout. My heart twisted. It was like Brian was right there in the room with us. I kept thinking about the day we saw him at the mall. He looked at Lucas for just a second too long, like something had clicked. What if he knew? What if he came back? That night, I had a dream where Brian showed up at my door and said, "He's mine. I want him." In the dream, Jason was standing behind me, arms crossed, not saying a word. I woke up shaking. I knew I couldn't live like this much longer.
Hiding.
Lying. Waiting for everything to fall apart. One afternoon, I drove to the park with Lucas. It was warm and sunny, and the playground was almost empty. I pushed him on the swing, watched him laugh, and thought about the kind of life I wanted for him. A life without secrets. A life where he knew where he came from, even if it wasn't perfect. That night, I made a decision. I texted Brian. "Can we talk?" He replied in less than a minute. "Of course." When? We met the next day, at a little diner off the highway. I got there early and ordered coffee, even though I wasn't hungry. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When Brian walked in, I almost couldn't breathe. He looked the same, messy hair, tired eyes, that lazy walk he always had. He sat down across from me and gave a small smile. "So," he said, "what's going on?" I didn't waste time. "I lied to you. About Lucas. He's yours." He didn't say anything at first. Just stared at me. I could see his jaw tense. "Are you serious?" he asked finally. I nodded. "I found out after we broke up. I told Jason he was the father. I was scared. I didn't want to bring you back into my life. I didn't think you'd want him. Or me." Brian leaned back in the booth and rubbed his face with both hands. He didn't look angry, just stunned. After a minute, he asked, "Why now?" "Because I can't live like this anymore," I said. "Jason knows." He left. I can't lie to Lucas forever. Brian shook his head slowly.
Wow.
I mean, I always wondered. That day at the mall. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I saw it in your face." He looked at me. "You should have told me sooner." "I know." We sat in silence for a while. The waitress came by, but we waved her off. Finally, Brian spoke again. "I don't know what to do with this. I've never even thought about being a dad." "I'm not asking for anything," I said. "I just thought you had a right to know." He nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." That was it. We didn't hug. We didn't make plans.
We just left.
But something in me felt lighter. Like I had opened a window and finally let the air in. The next week, Jason came by to see Lucas. I met him at the door, and we stood there for a moment. Awkward, quiet. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course." Lucas ran to him, arms up, yelling, "Dada." Jason picked him up and hugged him tight. His eyes were red. We sat on the couch while Lucas played on the rug. I talked to Brian, I told him. Jason looked down. I figured.
He knows now.
I told him everything. He's not asking to be involved. At least not yet. Jason nodded. "Okay." There was a long pause. "I'm not his biological father," he said softly. "But I still feel like his dad." "Is that crazy?" "No," I said. "It's not." He looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, there was something soft in his face again. "I don't know what's going to happen," he said. "But I love him. I always will." I smiled. "I know. We didn't fix everything that day.
But we started something.
Something honest." Jason kept coming around. At first, it was just for Lucas. He'd stop by after work, bring dinner, sit on the floor, and build block towers with him. Then he'd leave. No drama, no conversations about us. Just quiet, steady presence. I was grateful. and confused. I didn't ask him what he wanted. I was afraid of the answer. A month passed, then 2. And slowly things started to feel normal again, different but normal. I started sleeping better. Lucas said his first real sentence, "Dada hug," and Jason cried when he heard it. I watched from the doorway, and my heart cracked open again. I loved Jason. That never changed. But I had hurt him in a way that didn't just go away. Some days he looked at me like he still saw the girl he loved. Other days, I could see the wall in his eyes. Then one Sunday, while Lucas napped, Jason and I sat on the porch. The sun was setting, and everything was tinted orange and soft.
"I've been thinking," he said.
I waited. I want to stay in his life. As his dad. If you're okay with that. I nodded. Of course I'm okay with it. He looked at me carefully. And you?
"What do you want?"
I looked down at my hands. I want to stop feeling like I'm walking on broken glass. I want peace. For him. For me. For you.
Jason was quiet for a long time.
Then he said, "You should tell your family. The truth." That stopped me cold. I don't think I can. You already told Brian. You told me. But your mom still thinks I'm the father. Your sister does. Everyone does. Do you really want Lucas growing up in a lie? I didn't answer.
Not then.
But the question stayed with me. I heard it in my sleep, in the quiet moments between feeding Lucas and folding laundry. I imagined the look on my mom's face. I imagined her disappointment, her confusion. And I imagined what would happen if Lucas ever found out on his own, years from now, and realized everyone had lied to him. That's what made the decision for me. The next week, I asked my mom to come over. Jason watched Lucas in the park while we talked. I sat her down, poured her coffee, and told her everything. She was silent for a long time. Then she looked straight at me and said, "You did a stupid thing." I know, but you're not a stupid person. Tears filled my eyes. I was scared. I know you were, and you're doing the right thing now. She stood up and hugged me. I broke down in her arms. Telling my sister was harder. She was angry at first, more protective than anyone I know. She called Jason a saint, said I didn't deserve him. She wasn't wrong, but over time she came around too. People want to believe the best in the people they love. They just need time. As for Brian, I didn't hear from him for a while. Then, out of the blue, he texted. "Can I see him?" I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to say no, but something held me back. A voice in my head that said, "He deserves a chance. You said you wanted honesty." I told Jason first. He didn't explode. He didn't argue. He just said, "Do you trust him?" "I don't know," I said. "But I want to give him one visit, to see how it goes." He nodded, though I could see how tense his jaw was. So I arranged it. A Saturday afternoon, just me, Brian, and Lucas at the park. When Brian arrived, he looked nervous. Like he'd shaved that morning but hadn't slept the night before. Lucas was in the sandbox, digging with his little red shovel. I lifted him out gently and said, "Lucas, this is Brian. He's a friend." Brian crouched down. "Hey, buddy." Lucas looked at him for a second, then handed him the shovel. Something in Brian's face softened. He looked up at me, eyes glossy. We sat on a bench while Lucas played. Brian watched every movement, asked questions, what he liked to eat, what words he knew, what songs made him laugh. He didn't try to push. He just listened. "I wasn't ready to be a dad," he said quietly. "But maybe I could try. Just be in his life, even if it's small." I didn't promise anything. I said we'd take it slow. When the visit was over, Lucas waved goodbye. Brian smiled. It wasn't some magical moment, but it was something. A start. That night, Jason came over and asked, "How did it go?" "Better than I expected." He nodded. Then, after a pause, he said, "I think we need to talk about us." I braced myself. "I still love you," he said. "But I can't go back to how things were. Not unless you're ready to be fully honest. All the time. No more hiding." "I want that," I said. "I want to earn your trust again." He smiled just barely. "One day at a time?" "One day at a time." And that's how we started over. Not with a big decision. Not with a ring. Just with a promise to try. A year passed. One slow, uncertain, sometimes painful, but honest year. Lucas turned 2 in March. We had a small birthday party in the backyard, balloons, cupcakes, and toy trucks everywhere. Jason helped him blow out the candles. Brian came too. He stayed for an hour, gave Lucas a puzzle and a shy smile, then left before things got crowded. It was awkward, but peaceful. No one fought. No tensión. Just life. A new kind of life. Jason moved back in 6 months after we had that porch conversation. We didn't make a big deal of it. No declarations, no labels. He just started sleeping over more often. One morning, I realized half his clothes were back in the closet. It felt natural.
Real.
We were different now, stronger, but more cautious. He asked questions. I gave answers. When I felt guilt creeping in, I didn't hide it. When he felt doubt, he said so. That's how we kept going. We told the truth. Even when it hurt. Lucas started calling him Daddy, again without hesitation. Sometimes I caught Jason just watching him, like he was reminding himself. I get to be here. I still get this. And I did the same. Brian and I kept a light connection. He saw Lucas once a month, sometimes more if he asked. We kept it simple. Park visits, library story time, quick lunches. He never tried to overstep. He didn't introduce himself as Dad. He let Lucas decide what their relationship would be. I appreciated that. I really did. One day, I asked him why he never pushed harder. He said, because I wasn't there when it mattered most. I don't get to demand anything now. I just show up and hope it's enough. I told him it meant something. That it was enough for now. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I had told the truth from the beginning. Would Brian have run? Would Jason have stayed away forever? But I realized something, wondering what if doesn't change what is. And what has turned out to be a quiet, patchworked life. A good life. One evening, Jason and I were sitting on the couch while Lucas slept. We were flipping through photos from the last year, pumpkin patch in the fall, Christmas morning, a blurry picture of Lucas in his Halloween costume. He was a very grumpy dinosaur. Jason handed me his phone, showing me one I hadn't seen. Me holding Lucas in the kitchen, both of us laughing at something off camera. My hair was a mess. There was a smear of peanut butter on my sleeve. I looked ridiculous. And happy. You love him like he's yours, I said softly. Jason looked at me, serious. He is mine. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. Tears filled my eyes. I leaned against him, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe all the way in.
No secrets. No hiding.
Just the truth, messy and human, sitting there between us. A few weeks later, Jason surprised me. He brought home a photo album. The cover said, Our Family Story. Inside were photos. Us at the beach. Lucas asleep on Jason's chest. A crayon drawing Lucas made of Mama and Dada and me. But what hit me most was the very first page. It wasn't a photo. It was a note. Families aren't always made the usual way. Ours was made from forgiveness and choices, and showing up. This is our story. And we're writing it together, one honest page at a time. I cried when I read it. I think I always will. Because I spent so long running from the truth, thinking it would destroy everything. But the truth didn't ruin us. It saved us. Lucas is 3 now. He loves trucks and blueberries and putting stickers on everything. He knows that Jason is Daddy, and that Brian is someone special who loves him too. We'll tell him more when he's older. When he starts asking bigger questions. And when he does, we'll give him honest answers. No more lies. No more hiding. Just the truth, raw, imperfect, but real. Because that's the only kind of love that lasts. And now that's the only kind I know how to give.